Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Shantia here. So today we're going to be doing a review for Married at First Sight Reunion Part 1. And then there's going to be a Part 2. And then the show never ends because it just goes on and on. So if you guys are new to this channel is dedicated... Oh my gosh. That's my straw. Okay. If you guys are new to this channel is dedicated to helping women live in a way that feels the most natural to them. I'm also fascinated by the psychology of humans, how we connect, how we socialize, and therefore I watch this show and I give reviews. So let's go ahead and just start with the order that was presented before us. Rachel and Jose broke up, and I've made it funny, almost a little ironic, because I kept saying if I were her, I would not be married to him, we would be dating. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're dating. The situation with Rachel and Jose is that she moved in. He was Jose, right? Very picky Jose. He very particular about how he maintains his home. Jose mentioned something about complacency. It's real life. Everything's been amplified. The cameras are gone. And now they're kind of seeing it for what it is, like the work that really needs to be done between the two of them. So Jose has obviously maintained his selfish ways. He's still being incredibly selfish. Rachel is trying to give him second chances. In my opinion, part of me wants to be like, okay, like why even try? She said that she thought about it. She set aside that it's Jose, but she thought about like, okay, if her dream guy had certain qualities, what would those qualities be? She said she basically described Jose. I thought that was really beautiful of her to acknowledge that and to see his positive qualities. And I think at the same time, Jose does care for her because, you know, even if he's very selfish and he can't see it, he's willing to still kind of date his wife and do the work. Different men who are in a much more immature place wouldn't even try. The thing I want to emphasize with Rachel and Jose is, you know, they're working so hard to make the marriage work, but it's kind of why we always need to check in with ourselves to see, should we really want what we really want? Like, are we ready to receive it? Because what I'm seeing is I'm seeing two individuals who have a lot of work to do on their own. Jose when it comes to admitting his faults, his insecurities, and Rachel when it comes to knowing her strength and her worth. So my thing to Rachel would be, girl, you got options. You know, he is not your only option. But also just a reminder, like, work on yourself. You know, make sure you are not settling. Because if this is the best relationship or one of the best relationships you've had or the best representation from a guy that you've seen before, you need to raise your standards even higher. Because that should be, you know, all the good qualities he showed her, that should be the norm, the expectation. Rachel even mentioned that Jose treated her as good as a goddess. So, you know, I'm glad. I feel like she is recognizing some of what she deserves. Her leaving, that's the natural reaction. If someone starts treating you a certain way, you should start having doubts, because for a man to not want to share his space and be like, this is my space, her concerns were validated. Them actually maybe even moving into their own place versus his place would be more beneficial for her. It was too premature for her to decide to move into his place. He still has yet to show her truly what she deserves. Like, he still has yet to be consistent with that positive approach to actually being a husband. So my belief is that as a masculine or male in the relationship, one of your jobs is to make sure you protect your wife. And to me, Jose, by locking Rachel out the door, he failed. That's like the number one requirement to me as a husband to a wife, what you're supposed to do in a relationship. And if you don't do that, you are not ready to be a husband. I think he's just totally missing out. It's not okay. Even the way that he and Rachel talk about the relationship, they still have this issue of like they're a little too afraid to go into that dark territory. Jose gets this like stressed look, apprehensive look on his face whenever Rachel talks, because she's more honest than he is. Like, he tends to inflate everything, make it seem like it's not as bad as it is when it is, and he tends to be in denial. So that consistent denial is really difficult to work with someone if you want to heal. I think Rachel and Jose just need to focus on working and being healthy for themselves first. And then maybe they can give this marriage thing a shot. But I think Rachel definitely rushed into the idea of marriage, wanting to be with someone, because now she's constantly having to go back and forth with this guy who isn't consistent with his treatment of her. I feel like the reality is hitting Jose. I feel like if he really didn't want to try, he wouldn't try. What he saw in Rachel is he saw someone who had a lot of great qualities. He's attracted to her. He saw that in some way she was willing to put up with his stuff. I think to a man that means a lot, you know, to be partnered with someone who is kind of willing to put up with their difficult side too, their shadow aspects too. This woman is genuine. She actually wants to be with me. She actually wants to make things work. Again, on the topic of the travel situation, the first thing that Jose mentioned when Rachel talked about traveling across overseas to a different country was the price and how much it was going to cost. So he was talking about denying that the cost wasn't an issue when he specifically stated that it was. So I'm like, is it an issue? Is it not an issue? I don't know. I think to some degree he's willing to bend a little, but he's gonna have to learn how to bend a lot more. I don't really care for someone if you're not willing to consider their desires or even put them first in some circumstances. When Jose thinks of himself as a provider who's doing all these things for his wife, I think he gets it in his head that he needs to fix or change or modify, how to mold her in ways or nitpick her to meet his standards, so that he can be this provider. Now, a true provider just provides because they want to be there for you. They want to support you. If you have this idea or this expectation that I need you to change for you to deserve what I give you, that's not providing. I'll give Jose a break. I think he's trying. I think he's learning. And I think for the first time, he's learning how selfish he really can be. I think he's being humbled by his back and forth struggle with Rachel. Because I think before this, he's had such a high opinion of himself that this situation is kind of knocking him down. And it should, because when you overinflate yourself, your ego so much, then you start to lose sight of reality. And he's starting to see, okay, maybe I'm not as... He's still in denial about it, but we have to give him time to change. A person is not going to just change those traits. His touch with reality is not quite there. I think in his mind, Jose has kind of built up this reality of himself being this grand. Some people like to call it the Napoleon syndrome, where someone has to kind of inflate their ego, inflate themselves, their opinion, their image of themselves, so that they can feel worthy. Until he's able to see that, it's going to be a constant issue. The bigger thing that needs to be addressed is that they need to do individual healing in order to have a healthy relationship together. So moving on to, I think Brett and Ryan were the next couple. So, you know, Brett and Ryan, it is what it is. No one thought they were going to stay together. I think the scandalous situation that was brought up in this episode was that apparently Brett had given someone her number. Now, I rewatched this scene because I wasn't sure. You know, honestly, I didn't feel bad about it because I'm like, well, he didn't really try. She was more emotionally invested in it. And I think that's why the dating app thing upset her, even though she had given someone else her number. I think in her mind, don't come for me for this, but I think in her mind, she didn't see herself as cheating in a way because she was still emotionally somewhat invested in him. Not deeply, just somewhat more invested, willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. Because he didn't really try and kind of gave up pretty much right away as soon as they got back from the honeymoon, him being on the dating app, maybe it was kind of that extra stab or a reminder, or in a way to her, it validated her insecurity or her fear of not feeling wanted and being the one who's putting in all the work in the relationship. I think she was really reliving a lot of her fears and her insecurities in this relationship, as we always do. We tend to repeat patterns in relationships. They don't just go away. You have to heal those patterns in order for you to move forward. That's it. There's no walking around it. It's going to keep coming up. I think that's what it was. That was the difference, is she was more emotionally invested. He wasn't. That insecurity, that reminder that she had put in all this effort in these long-term relationships in the past where the other person wasn't reciprocating her affection. It just hurt her that much more to re-experience it, even if it was on a small scale. He didn't really try with her, but he was willing to date someone else. And I think that kind of hurt her. And therefore, her opinion of Ryan just wasn't that great. Again, this idea of them being friends, I don't see them as friends. I don't see them as trying to be friends. I think they're friendly. I don't think they're trying to be friends with one another. And Ryan said it, like, we've barely spoken to each other since decision day. So, you know, they don't need to be friends. They can just go off in their own separate ways and live their own separate lives and just move on from there. Ryan being on the dating app, Brett giving out her number. I don't really care. Neither of these two people were that emotionally invested to really get hurt. But if we're gonna call Ryan out on the dating app, Brett, you need to call yourself out. I think she wasn't expecting it to get caught, and she was just trying to cover herself. And I think she didn't see it as that bad of a situation because she wasn't really giving anything to this person at the time. It was two-faced of her to not admit her wrongs, but I wouldn't straight up call her, she's not a fake person to me. In that moment, I think she was just covering herself and she didn't want to admit what she had done. And in her mind, maybe she had decided, because she hadn't emotionally invested in this person to that extent prior to decision date, she didn't feel like she did anything wrong. So yeah, that's just my math on it. We always talk about double standards, but you know, I honestly don't believe women or men are the same. Now, we both deserved to be valued as human beings the same, but we're not the same. We bring different things to the table. We bring different things. That's what creates the attraction, is we bring something different to the table. So I have a different opinion of Ryan and Brett. Honestly, I'm not even mad about Ryan. It's what a lot of guys do, I think, when they're not feeling anything. Overall, I think Ryan is a good guy. Ryan's sister also let it be known that she feels like Ryan is ready for marriage. I think he's pretty close. Like, he has a lot of great qualities, but even when they were confronting Brett, he gets really nervous about confrontation. And I feel like he should pick up a couple books and understand how to have conflict or confrontation with a partner. Arguing or disagreeing with your partner, it doesn't have to be this big thing. It can be this normal thing that we know how to handle as adults. At some point you become an adult and you just start to learn, okay, we handle our ish, we move on. I also think that he has some soul searching and personal work to do on himself. Brett is ready for that, but she has to, again, just stay in your confidence, know your worthiness, move forward, ready to open your heart to that person who's deserving of it. The next couple that came up was Gill and Myrla. Gill and Myrla broke up. I was kind of surprised to hear about that. I take it back. I wasn't surprised. I wasn't surprised with any of the couples breaking up because we've seen consistent issues amongst all of them. Now, a lot of people are kind of upset with Myrla for being so cold. But then when I rewatched it, I saw that the girl she's factual. She's just very direct and almost too honest to a point, to a fault, where it's like, ooh, did you really need to say that honest? So Myrla said, she's like, he's a great guy. He's attractive. We're just not good for each other. She said it. That was it. One and done. Now, why did she hold back this entire time? I called it out in my previous review. I felt like, one, she was trying to preserve her reputation. She was not trying to cause a lot of drama or disruption. She didn't want to hear about anyone's opinions because she had already developed a very clear opinion on her own. And she didn't want anyone to dissuade her. In a way, I feel like she treated this relationship like a job. I know marriage can be like a job, but she really treated it like a 9 to 5. You know, where you kind of like do the thing and then you leave, right? Because like when you think about your coworkers, we're not trying to get close. Well, sometimes it depends on the environment you work in, but we just go, we do the work, we go home. And I think that's why it was so easy for her to cut it off, because she had already kind of decided. She was very clear in her mind. Now her issue was she didn't communicate that. Now, why did she not communicate that? Why did she not just let Gil know the truth? One, to preserve her reputation, maybe. Two, I think there's an issue there. She had already assumed that he was not going to have a good reaction to her being honest. And I think on top of that, with the cameras being in her face, she was just like, no, I'm not embarrassing myself here. Because Myrla is just like that. She's just like that. She does not play. If she doesn't like something, she doesn't like something. So I think at some point she just decided, I don't want any drama. I'm not going to be the villain with the drama, because she didn't try to create any drama on the show. She did everything behind the scenes, and she did it with coldness isn't quite the right word, but like a indifference, almost like just a very sterile approach. She had a very sterile approach to saying no and deciding not to be in it. I really think she was trying to give the relationship a chance, because we saw throughout, you know, she kissed him and she enjoyed him, because I think she likes who he is, likes who he was, likes how he presented himself. She enjoyed her time with him, but she did the math. And I'm not talking about financially. I'm talking about she did the math with their personalities, and things that just did not add up. The thing is, Myrla is very smart. Gil, to me, he's more simple and direct in the way that he sees things. Also, I want to acknowledge that men cannot read our minds. Women are a lot more intuitive. Men will not know. They will be easily blindsided if you don't let them know. You need to communicate your feelings to them, which she should have done, so she could have prepared his heart. Because I think what he saw is Myrla communicated, oh, you know, I'm choosing to love you. I'm willing to make this work. You're my husband. And he saw all this, and it just kind of built him up. And he started to see this idea of their relationship being created. Thus, he had the courage to speak up about, okay, I'm going to be the man of the house, and I'm going to tell you about how to spend your money, which you're much better at making and saving. I think he really just had this built up idea that he was the man in her life. And so I think that's what he was brokenhearted about. I'll address Gil's side further. What I did see, there was some kind of coldness. I think Myrla has issues communicating, and this has probably shown up in her previous relationships. She'll decide in her mind, but she won't say it out loud, which is extremely problematic because men are not mind readers. And you have to give them an opportunity and a chance to work on themselves, you know, to really have the compassion. But she's all about, if I don't like it, I don't like it, next. And I appreciate that, because to some extent, I think women do need to have that logic. Like, women should date with logic, because we're such emotional beings. We're naturally monogamous. We can devote our entire being to this one person for the rest of our lives with ease. Like, it's just what we do. We should take our time to logically do the math and be like, okay, hold up. Our values are different. They don't match. We're not quite happy. We don't quite mesh well in these areas. So you should do the math. And that's what I'm proud of Myrla doing, is she did the math. She was very clear. She's like, there was some attraction, but there wasn't enough attraction for me. And then she also talked about chemistry, which I've heard mentioned in other videos, that chemistry is temporary. So chemistry is not a valid way to base a relationship off of. It's temporary. It doesn't last forever. Chemistry is attracting someone who is your counterpart in certain ways. It's just like this natural give and take that you can feel with someone, but it's not something that's going to last forever. If you're in a long-term partnership, it fizzles out and then the real work starts to happen. What I've heard some other people mentioning is that I don't think, perhaps Myrla is not mentioning everything about why she decided not to, because she said it was a number of things. And I don't think she's mentioning everything as to why she decided not to be with Gil. There might be other reasons, but I think she honestly was giving it a chance. I just think that she kind of has a coldness to her where she could just cut people off and be done. That's her real self. I don't think that makes her a mean-spirited person. The thing is, men are attracted to warmth. If you lack that warmth, it's really going to be hard for you to succeed in a relationship. The whole reason a man gets in a relationship is so he can experience your warmth. So if she doesn't know how to create that, she's going to have a hard time sustaining a relationship, period, point blank. It's going to be a consistent issue. So we might all be wanting to get on Myrla's case for being so cold. I don't feel mad at her at all. I think the way she went about it was kind of messed up. Or it was just, to me, it was almost a little bit cowardly. Like, why didn't you just say it? And why weren't you willing to look bad on camera by just saying it? Saying, I'm not attracted to you. She didn't want to look bad on camera. She didn't want to be seen a certain way. She said that Gil said she was high maintenance, and so she held back. And I actually called that out before. I said, oh, if he's complained so much about her chronic complaining, she's held back. She held everything back. This is where people pleasing and being too nice gets you in stormy waters, because you have to be honest, period. Especially in a relationship, there's gentle ways to let people know. Like, there's an issue with communication with her. Like, she holds too much in, and she overly considered his opinion of her being high maintenance, so much so that she stopped being her true self. And in her mind, she kind of decided, I don't like this. I don't like having to hide who I am, because he keeps calling me out for it. But he had this built-up idea that she was receiving everything that he was saying and taking the corrections. And therefore, he was becoming a lot more vulnerable, opening up to her emotionally, and willing to have that love for her. But it's based off of lies, Gil. I'm sorry, it's based off of lies. It ain't real. So Gil showed up decked in this garb, you know, of he had a really nice outfit going on, and he had some red bottoms, which tells me that he was insecure. Because to me, you have nothing to prove, Gil. You know, red bottoms, no red bottoms, you have nothing to prove. Gil admitted he felt more insecure because of Myrla and the way she didn't communicate. So yeah, that's the issue. That's what she did. I don't feel like she necessarily broke him. I think there are some things that made it easier for him to break that were already there prior to the relationship. But I think when it came to Myrla, she was thinking she was helping by not communicating those problems. But girl, please learn from this. That was not the way. That's not the way to solve the problem. When someone calls you a princessa who is high maintenance, that is not the way to resolve it. There are other ways. You have to communicate no matter what, and you have to be honest no matter what. Gil's insecurity definitely showed in this episode because he came decked out. You know, and why did he do that? To some degree to impress her, to show her something. I am that. I can be that man. It's just a reminder that men really do feed off of our energy. Our opinions of them, it really does affect them. So we always have to be considerate of how we treat them. And I think Myrla had the right intent. The way she went about it was wrong. The way she went about it was wrong. That was not the right way to go about it. Because she just created this black and white scenario in her head. She ended up hurting him as a result. Another reason why it's easy to recognize that Gil was insecure during the season was that he mentioned that now he makes $100 more than her every 2 weeks. Now, Gil, you lost me there. You lost me there. Now, again, if you're truly confident in yourself, now I know men, they do want to impress you, but I'm like, if you're truly confident in yourself, you're not going to say nothing. And you're not going to try to impress anyone. You're going to come with your energy. You're going to be like, I'm doing well for myself, and I'm doing well because you inspired me. It was a little too late for him to mention that. All we saw was him talking about how she should spend her money and that she's high maintenance. You do want to feel inspired by your wife. You want to let her elevate you. And the thing is, Myrla didn't say anything. She wasn't telling him, hey, I need you to make this amount of money. She did say that the stability wasn't there, which it wasn't. To me, if you don't have a savings, there isn't stability. You're not solidified in your job, there is no stability. You're still kind of learning your situation. Take your time. I know how to make this money. I know how to sustain it. I know how to provide for a certain lifestyle consistently. Then you can do that. And then the fact that Gil mentioned that he sold everything but his blender, clothes, and his dog, of course. He was trying to paint the picture a little bit more clearly. But to me, I don't think Myrla told him to sell all his things. He chose to do that. So he needs to take accountability. I'm like, again, this is where I've talked about it before. Men in America, because we're such a melting pot of so many different cultures, and all of us, our ancestors having to start again and create our whole new set of values. You know, it's not like in other countries where they're based off of tradition. We're creating new traditions here in America. So our values aren't quite solidified. And I'm not sure they ever will be because we're such a melting pot of the entire world. Thus, I think a lot of men struggle to really understand, how do you treat a woman? What does it mean to be a man? What does it look like to be a man? So if you're choosing to sell all your things because of a woman, that's because you're listening to that male instinct. I have to do whatever it takes to make sure she's comfortable, to do whatever. But she didn't ask you to do those things. I think Gil's gonna be perfectly fine. What he's exemplified is that he has a lot of great qualities that women are looking for, but as far as finding security in himself as a man, I think that's going to take a little bit more time for him to solidify that. But he's on his way. Compared to all the other men, he feels the most level-headed to me. His thing is solidifying himself in his building stage and in what he's creating for himself, and then he'll be fine. I think Myrla, it's the coldness. Find that warmth, girl. Find that warmth. That heart is a little bit too cold. It needs to thaw out. So I forgot to mention some pretty important points. So during their interview, Myrla mentioned that Gil wasn't happy and that she recognized that. And she didn't understand why he wanted to be in a relationship where he was unhappy. And I think that's partially due to her fault, the lack of communication on her part. She should have been telling her that she wasn't happy either. He shouldn't be blindsided. He shouldn't be hearing all of these things post decision day. This should have been a part of your process in communicating to each other. You should have offered him a chance to make the change. To add on to Myrla's point, why do we want to be in relationships that make us unhappy? Why is that normal? Why do we see that as normal? That's something to consider. Why is it that you're calling this woman out, you know, you're calling her a complainer and a princess and high maintenance and having all these critical thoughts towards her? There is an underlying lack of respect in your relationship. And without that foundation of respect, you cannot build a sustainable, healthy marriage. You have to have the respect. Myrla was absolutely on point. That's why I'm not mad at her. She did the right thing for both of them. They both should have said no. Doing it in the way that she did it, holding all those points, like in her mind, she was doing the right thing. But you're undermining someone's ability to think for themselves, to make improvements where need be. She assumed he couldn't meet her at that level. Yes, maybe we should break up, but he should be 1000% aware of it more than anyone else. So that was my point, is we need to think about and we need to consider, why are we participating and putting ourselves in relationships where we are not happy? You know, where we're miserable. You know, I understand we go through struggle, but where you're miserable, you don't respect each other. That should be a huge clue. This partnership is not working, or we have a lot of healing to do, and usually that healing is best done separately. You can do the work together, but there are some foundational things that you need prior to getting into a relationship, especially a marriage, that you're going to need to help it sustain, because the marriage, the partner being there is just going to amplify a lot of your insecurities that already exist. So recognize them. If you feel like, okay, this is a big insecurity, work on it. Moving on to Zach and Kayla. I was just like laughing the entire time because it's like watching what Jerry Springer and Maury, I don't know, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Now, whether Michaela lied or not, or Zach told her to lie about the intimacy on the 1 month anniversary, I don't care. I think they should just go their separate ways. Michaela, she's shown to be dishonest. I think Zach honestly is very honest, and almost too honest, because if he caught it, when Kevin asked all the men about the couples, he said he didn't think Rachel and Jose were going to work, and that he was surprised that they did work. Like, he has that word vomit, foot in the mouth moments all the time where he's just too honest. Whereas Michaela is calculative. That moment, and then the other moment was when he saw that Myrla and Gil had chemistry or something, they had attraction or something growing together, but he didn't think they were going to work out. He said that. You tell me who's the real liar. Her? Him? I don't know. It's just ridiculous. The thing is, with Michaela saying, no, I don't want him here, and then coming out, there she is, again, overstepping his boundaries. He does not have boundaries. I don't think he has boundaries because he said, oh, you know, I was excited to see her, you know, for the reunion, even though apparently she may have blocked his number. Like, there's just a disconnect when it comes to reality and understanding how humans work, how we should work, what it means to have healthy boundaries. Like, I really think he needs to go to some therapy to understand how to create those things and how to see how those things work. Michaela, while Zach was on stage, she mentioned, I always take responsibility. Again, girl, your reality and our reality, two different things. We ain't seeing that. A lot of delusion, I think, when it comes to the two of them and just the way they see relationships. And there's just a recipe for disaster. So that's, you know, the drama unfolding. This is the other thing I wanted to mention. So Michaela apparently was sleeping with Zach after decision day, right? After he had asked for a divorce. So that proved that she is deeply craving connection, and she will try to find it even in the most dysfunctional places and spaces. There it is. Two people creating dysfunction and not really seeing it, not really understanding their part in it. Other than that, I have nothing to say. They shouldn't be together. They should just end it. So that's my review for the reunion part 1. Go ahead and let me know. So I wanted to kind of do a little bit of a Q&A. So if you guys could let me know down below what your questions are, maybe what topics you want me to speak on for the next video, then go ahead and do that so that I can maybe expand on whatever you want to talk about. Or maybe you're just feeling like, you're over it. Thing is, I'm so fascinated by people and psychology that I have no problem watching them again and again. And the reunion is always entertaining because you start to see like, what work did people actually do? Did they do the work? Did they not do the work? If there's anything we can get out of this reunion, it's that change takes time. Because I think for the most part, a lot of the contestants, the candidates, stuck in their same ways, their patterns, and I feel like that's why it's so important to love life. It's so important to love working on yourself, and I'm always excited to find ways to up-level myself as a human being. So I'm never staying the same. I'm never stagnant. I'm always changing. And the reason why I'm always changing is because there's always another level to evolve to. Keep working on yourself. Don't get fixed on one way of being. Like, I think Jose is very stuck in his way of being. The thing is, if he's so stuck in his way of being, he's never gonna have space for a wife or kids. To have a family, to have a marriage takes a lot of fluidity, to make space for other people, and to make space for other people being flawed human beings. You have to have that. I know for sure Jose is just as, if not more, hard on himself as he is on others. We all have that perfectionistic ways about us sometimes, and I know if you're a perfectionist towards your partner or someone else, you're just as bad, if not worse, on yourself. And it's not fair to hold anyone up to that standard because we're human. You know, so love them for all of the great things they do and all the great qualities they bring to you. If they're helping you to elevate as a human, I think for the most part, they're doing what they're supposed to do as your partner. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say. I'll see you guys next week for the next review. Thank you for watching. Bye. Also, I would love to add in, whether it's a face, a furry face, or a favorite place, my artworks are treasured keepsakes, unique and tailored to your most treasured memories. I do portrait commissions that are gifted from and created with heart. So go ahead and check out my website. I'll go ahead and link it down below. You guys can see if you're interested in me doing commissions for you. Also, I sell my own fine art, which is a labor of love. My artwork tends to lean towards identity and healing. So if you're interested in checking that out, then go ahead and look at my link down below. All right, I hope you guys have a wonderful day or evening. Thank you for watching, and tune in for next week for the next review of Married at First Sight. Bye.